Good evening, everyone out there in YouTube land. My name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. In this video, we are going to replace a misbehaving multifunction switch on my 2001 Ford F250, nicknamed Miss Mildew. Without further ado, let's get started. So here's the current issue. Right now, if I push this in, this is the multi-switch, by the way. This does turn signals, high beams, flashers, and wiper control. And right now, when I push this in to get the wiper pump to spray fluid and clean the windshield, there's an even money chance it's not going to work. So it decided to work for the purposes of this video. But the other issue I have with this is when I do a left turn. Right now it's behaving. Oh, there it goes. And what I believe is going on, turn that off, is that there's a wear spot in the contact from 20 years of left turns. And we need a new one. I've tried spraying it out. I've tried hitting it with air. I've tried a bunch of things, and I've gotten it better, but not fixed. So we're going to take care of the fixed part. I've got a new replacement part from Dorman, and we're going to get it installed and see if that clears up the two issues that I'm seeing. So the very first thing we have to do to get at this multi-switch is you have to drop the lower clamshell. There are 3 screws. Let's see if we can get the light source a little better. There we go. There are 3 screws that you have to unscrew. You also have to unscrew the tilt lever if your vehicle has a tilt lever, and get all that out of the way, and then the clamshell comes out. The next thing you have to do is remove the ignition cylinder. And for that, really, just take a look at my ignition cylinder replacement video, because I had to replace that as well for the same issue, just a worn out contact. And you essentially have to get the key in this position. So it'd be about 2 o'clock, if you're looking at it like that. And then you get under here, should be around, let me change the light source around, it's a little tricky. Where is it? There it is. That little metal ball bearing thing. You're going to push on it with a punch, screwdriver, something pointy, a pick, and that's like a release tang, and then you can pull the ignition cylinder out. So that's how that works. So we're going to pick up after we get the ignition cylinder out. If you're not comfortable leaving the system energized, you need to go ahead and pull the battery. I'm fine with it. I've actually had this multi-switch out multiple times working on it, so we'll be good to go there. So let me go ahead, get the lighting and everything set up for after we get the ignition switch out, and we'll go from there. Alright, that's decent light. So our lower clamshell is off, our ignition cylinder is out. So now we need to remove the upper clamshell. And to do that, you just wiggle. Part of it is underneath the dash, so you just kind of have to pull up, kind of wiggle, and rotate, get it around stuff. As long as your plastic is still somewhat supple, you can get this off and nothing will break. So now, clamshells are out and the multi-switch is now exposed, but we need to actually remove it. And to remove it, there are, my English teacher would get me, there are 2 T20 Torx that are below. There's one below and then one above. Right there, you can see it now. I moved the light. Those are T20s. You can bring them out by hand. They're not crazy tight. And then once those are out, we can get to work on pulling the electrical. I can't get a good camera angle here, so I'm going to go ahead and remove those 2 screws, and then we'll get to removing the electrical connectors. Okay, I got the screws loose, or I thought I did. Yeah, I'm being fairly addle-brained today. So I guess we're going to record one being removed. T20, just get it in there. And you want to make sure you don't lose these, because most folks don't just have Torx lying around. So what I like to do is I just pile everything in one of the clamshells so I don't lose it. Alright, so we're out. There are two connectors here, pretty big because this thing does a lot. And I'll be frank, they're a pain to remove. They both have very long clips, retaining clips or eaters. This one here is not that bad to remove. You want to do that one second. This one needs to come out first. And really, to get it out, what I like to do, and unfortunately I won't be able to show it because I don't have a good camera angle. I don't have anything to set the camera on. You take two jeweler's screwdrivers and you lift both sides at once, and then lift up until you get it past the notches, and then it just pops out. And this plastic should be supple enough to do that because it's been hidden under the clamshell around the steering column. So I'm going to work on that, and then I'll bring you back once we've got the oldest multi-function switch out. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Do the light better. So our replacement multi-function switch is a Dorman. It is a 2330858. So let's get into it. Alright. So we can do a little stare and compare with our existing. Looks pretty good. And then we can check the contacts. That also looks good. So at this point, we can go ahead and put the Dorman in. Now, I did want to make a note about these multi-switches, these multi-function switches. You can get them for 20 bucks. But I'm pretty dang sure you're going to get what you pay for. With the really, really cheap replacements, what happens is this ink only lasts about 2 seconds, and then it wears away. And then you've got a part here that's got to function thousands of operations before it fails, right? You got to click things down and up, forward, backward. You got to press this in. So for 20 bucks, you're not going to get the internal parts you need. This at the parts store is about $110. I got it for about half of that on Amazon. So what I'm saying is try to put your money into something that's halfway decent so you're not doing this again in 6 months. Alright, I already plugged in the big kind of potato shaped connector. And just go ahead, plug this in until it clicks. We're not all the way seated yet. Now we are. And at this point, before you put anything else in, you can go ahead and do some function checking. So let's see, do we have wipers? Yep. So we've got variable speed. And I didn't make a video, but also the wiper motor was bad. I had to replace that. Let's check hazards. That looks good. That bulb was burned out, so I got to replace it. And I can see the flash up front, so flash in the back. Yep. All right, hazards are good. Let's check turn signals. Yep. So again, that's right. This is really hard to do one-handed. Yep. And there's left all day long. And then let's do, so that's not going to work till I turn the headlights on. High beams, that's working. And I see my high beam indicator is burned out. All right. And flash. Okay, so yeah, we are good. This has been a successful repair in that it's addressed the two problems I was having. So now we're just going to go ahead and reverse the steps. We put our Torx back in. Then we, oh, that's interesting. Then we put the upper clamshell back in, and then we put the lower clamshell back in. Well, upper clamshell, ignition cylinder, lower clamshell, screw it all back together, and we are done. Alright, so when you put the upper clamshell back on, you make sure you feed it over the gear selector. Then you kind of have to, again, sneak it under the bezel here. And then you get it centered up on your hazard switch. And you can also take a look at the ignition cylinder, and it should more or less line up with the hole for it. And if you've done all that, that should be pretty good. You can go ahead, reinsert the ignition cylinder, and then put the lower clamshell back in. And then don't forget, the last thing you got to do, if your truck has it, is put the tilt steering lever back in. Okay guys, and that is it. And I'll be honest, I do not know the secret to get the clamshell to look perfect again. I think there's a couple of little clips in the back that I never can quite line up. But I can make it look passable, which for this truck, that's perfectly fine. Because I got this truck, it's got 267,000 miles on it. It was bought to be a weekend warrior and as a backup vehicle if one of my primaries goes down. And the inside doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be good enough. Like, this is after a ton of cleaning. I still don't like that. Anyone know how to get rid of this? This really, really heavy soiling right here. If you have a way to do that, leave it in the comments below. I've tried steam, I've tried vinegar, I've tried some fairly strong chemicals, and a lot of it came up, but it still looks really rough. So, but in any case, that's going to do it here, and we have a complete repair. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this episode where we swapped out the multifunction switch in a 2001 Ford F250. So please leave a comment. I like to read them, I like to reply to them, I like to learn from them. Please also like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that fun YouTube stuff. And remember, I make the mistakes so you don't have to. I'll see you guys next episode.